I think it's time we preview ASU's Week 2 matchup.
Sure, bud.
Don't bud me, pal.
You gotta calm down, Chief.
It is a whimsical Wednesday, guys. Welcome into the PHNX Sun Devils show, coming to you live from Studio K, presented by Circle K. Join Inner Circle for free by downloading that Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details. I am Anthony Totri, joined as always by the one, the only dog-legged Ruby himself. That is Erik Ruby. We've got DJ Coop.
Add another nickname to the list.
Behind the Mac, he is making all of the magic happen. Do us a solid. Hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button. Drop a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. Guys, it's Wednesday, and guess what?
What?
Football is right around the corner yet again. We got JJB in the chat already talking ASU hoops. We may get into that a little bit at the tail end of today's show, but the meat and potatoes, Erik, is Arizona State, Mississippi State. We have got a preview to do. We're going to get some sound from Mississippi State coach Jeff Lebby. You guys are going to hear from him himself on his thoughts on ASU as a whole, what this game can mean, and then really on the ASU offense and defensive side of the ball. But a couple storylines and really just key things to keep in mind if you're an ASU fan gearing up for that Saturday matchup, starting with Mississippi State quarterback Blake Shapen. We talked a little bit about him yesterday. Yes, he is a traitor. But Blake Shapen, I had the chance to watch some of the film from that game a little bit earlier today. This kid's athletic. He can moves a lot better than Wyoming's quarterback. And this kid can make plays off of schedule. So, Erik, this is definitely going to be a little bit of a tougher test for this Sun Devil defense.
Yeah, I think overall this team is significantly a bigger test than Wyoming. And Evan Svoboda, love the local guy. Big dude.
Big guy.
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah.
And anybody who can make a play right out of the pocket, actually, pick apart a defense, not to be like he's some mastermind, incredible quarterback, but like actually find your spots, find the right receivers, and move your team downfield is going to be a massive upgrade over what Wyoming was doing. And this week will be kind of the true test to where, was it Evan Svoboda the reason why he looked not great, or was this defense, or was it a mixture of both? And having somebody who, if ASU is able to contain him and not have him make plays like he did before, that is actual tape that you can look at and say, hey, they're changing how somebody plays. Because with Evan, it was like you just didn't really know how good he was going to be, and then they suffocated him.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. And again, being able to watch Shapen in some of this Mississippi State film, it is a little bit more of a challenge just to evaluate just based off of the fact that this is a team in Mississippi State that, yes, it's got some SEC pedigree to it, not to the likes of Georgia and LSU and those schools. But they're going to dominate a team like Eastern Kentucky, and that's exactly what they did. With that said, an interesting point based off of the Arizona State defense, right? This is a team in Arizona State that forced a number of turnovers, took the ball away, got pressure really throughout the game, stuffed the run, scored touchdowns on their own, to their own accord. In last week's game against Eastern Kentucky for Blake Shapen was the first time that Shapen has thrown 3 or more touchdowns without a turnover since his 3-touchdown performance in the 2021 Big 12 title game. Only the 3rd time of his career with 3 passing touchdowns. Overall, this kid, yes, he's athletic. Yes, he's talented. He has a knack for turning it over. And really, this entire Bulldogs offense showcased that against Eastern Kentucky, right? Eastern Kentucky is not a team that you would expect to really be flying all over the field. And if you turn on the tape, they really didn't. Mississippi State put the ball on the ground 3 separate times, However, none of those counted because Mississippi State fell on the ball each and every time. That is something that Arizona State is going to have the opportunity to do. They're going to have the opportunity to take the football away, but when that ball's on the ground, you have to create those extra opportunities for your offense in a game against an SEC opponent.
And that's something the defense did a fantastic job in week 1, is forcing those turnovers, getting those takeaways, whether it was Watley picking up a ball off the ground or if it was Keyshawn or Zyrus picking it off. They were actually able to not just bat the ball down or, force an incompletion, but they were able to actually secure possession on the other end as well. And that was something obviously last season. I think they had 5 total takeaways last season and they had 3 in game 1. I forget what the exact number was, but they did a massive
for Arizona State.
Yeah, maybe it was 9.
I think they had 9.
9. So they had 33% of all their takeaways last season.
33.3 repeating.
3. I'm a big math guy, you know me. So you're right, and the thing is, against a team like Wyoming, you still would have won that game if you didn't force those turnovers. If you just batted the ball down or force a stop, you were so dominant over them that wasn't technically necessary. With a team like Mississippi State, you have to take advantage of those opportunities because they will on the other end. This is not the best team in the SEC. We all know that.
By no means.
Arizona State is favored in this game by the same amount they were favored against Wyoming going into week 1. So it's not like you are absolutely screwed and you have to play a perfect game to beat them, but you have to take advantage of opportunities those.
You do. And I'll be completely honest with you. I was telling Erik a little bit before the show, right? Having the opportunity to sit down and watch some of this game film. I wasn't overly impressed with Mississippi State offensively, defensively. I think Arizona State is a better team. I think when that line first came out and it was 2.5 and then ballooned to 6.5, you're like, geez, Arizona State nearly a touchdown or a little bit more than a touchdown favorite over an SEC team. This program has never beaten an SEC team. So it would obviously be a huge accomplishment. And then you watch them, and Mississippi State was just, it didn't feel like this was a team that is completely gelled together, right? And getting more into that offense, they do have some weapons. Kevin Coleman at wide receiver, Jordan Mosley, another really talented wide receiver. Mosley is a little bit bigger. He's only 6 foot, but he is one of the bigger wideouts that Mississippi State does roll out there. He is definitely going to be a threat. And then really, if I'm Arizona State and I had to pick one guy that you're really game planning against offensively, not named Blake Shapen, it would be wide receiver Kevin Coleman. He's a little bit smaller. He's shifty. He's quick. They love to move him pre-snap, similar to the way that Arizona State likes to move guys like a Melquan Stovall. If I had to give a comp, Kevin Coleman reminds me a lot of Oklahoma State's Brennan Presley, who gave Arizona State's defense fits last season. He's shifty. He's quick. He moves all over the formation, plays a lot in the slot, and can really do it all. And then Jordan Mosley, don't be fooled. Just because he's 6 foot and a little bit bigger, he's got some speed to him as well.
He looks bigger than 6 foot.
He does look a lot bigger than 6 foot, but again, you watch that tape back. It's not necessarily that Mosley and Coleman went out there and made some ridiculous plays. The way that this offense is designed, right? They'll spread you out. They love to run a lot of RPOs. They get the ball out quick, make life easy for Shapen, especially if you're sitting in a zone. Being able to function in this offense where it is, okay, bang, 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 and it's high tempo. They're constantly just dinking and dunking down the field. And then they do like to take their shots when they can, especially in this RPO situation, where if you run it enough and you get the ball out quickly, you see it with Eastern Kentucky. Those DBs on the perimeter, they got caught looking in the backfield one too many times, and Shapen took advantage of it.
Well, and that's the thing. If you look at Mosley, one of his touchdowns, one of the longest plays of the game for Mississippi State. If you actually played a lick of defense, which the Eastern Kentucky Colonels did not, there's no chance that that's a touchdown. He literally just ran in a straight line right down the sideline.
And if you watch it, he was looking straight in the backfield.
And he passes the defender and he just goes points up in the air. And I mean, listen, man, you have to be able to convert the easy plays. He's already wide open and Shapen delivers to him downfield. Those are the plays that if you're a college quarterback and a college wide receiver, you should make them.
You should make them 10 times out of 10.
Even if you're in high school, honestly, even if you're in middle school, those were some of the plays that Eastern Kentucky was giving up. But again, that just kind of goes to show there was room for error. There was room for figuring things out, against Wyoming. But if you make a mistake against this team, this is a team that will take advantage of it. And I'm by no means comparing ASU to Eastern Kentucky.
Yeah, no.
I think if ASU played Eastern Kentucky, they would have won by more than what they beat Wyoming. However, it's more of just a fact of and Kenny mentioned this after his practices of you can't get complacent. You can't feel like you have this figured out because quite frankly, 1 week doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
At all.
100%.
Right? I mean, don't get it twisted. Saturday night it meant a lot. Over the weekend it meant a lot. But now I don't care anymore. I'm looking at Mississippi State and I'm saying this is all my focus and attention is on right now.
And that's exactly what it should be.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, they're favored. It's an SEC team, but I think there is kind of that, overhanging shadow of, we've never done this once before in program history.
I see that. I think that's almost more of the fan perception. I think that's what
fair.
it is right now, because when you get on the field and you're in these meeting rooms and, yes, that is something that I'm sure has been brought up already a couple different times, obviously by Kenny Dillingham, I'm sure in meetings as well. But at a certain point, it's just what you do in between the lines, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the accomplishments that come with it, in the accomplishment in this case, it'd be the program's first SEC win. Like that is something that you celebrate after the fact. But when you're in between and you're lining up there and you got 11 on 11 football, like that's not something that these guys are thinking about. And again, like, yes, that would be amazing for the program, but to accomplish something like that, to get that massive win, you've got to take care of it every single play. And again, like this Mississippi State offense is going to spread Arizona State out. So when you spread a defense out like this, what does this do, right? You're running the RPO. You have the ability to run the ball. You have the ability to take your shots. You can hit your quick dink and dunk routes, crossing routes. I know somebody said that in the chat. They expect to see a lot of that. Well, first off, Arizona State already plays a different style of defense because they do run an extra defensive back, right? They run a nickel out there usually in their base defense, whether that be Shamari or Cole Martin, as opposed to other defenses that maybe would stick with a traditional 4-3 and they'd have 3 linebackers out there, right? So in this case, you're spread out wide. Usually you have smaller guys on the field if you're running a nickel out there. And then it's up to Shapen. When you have a box that is spread out like that, you can't quote unquote load it up, right? A 7-8 man box. So Shapen will look, he'll evaluate the defense. If he likes the box, he'll turn, he'll hand it. That puts a lot of pressure, obviously, throughout the game in this style of offense on a guy like Cyrus Fiaseu, on another guy in Keyshawn Elliott, and also a nickel, right? Whether that be a Cole Martin or a Shamari Simmons, to be able to tackle in open field and to be able to read the offense quickly, whether it is a pass, whether it is a run. So I think in this game specifically, you're looking to the linebackers. You're looking at guys who had big games last week, Keyshawn Elliott, Cyrus Fiaseu, not only in the pass and run game, but going back to what we talked about earlier, is when Shapen doesn't like the look, he's going to take off and run himself.
Yeah, he's definitely not afraid to run at all. I mean, to be fair, he's not afraid to run. He also almost fumbled the ball. Yeah. One of the times that he ran, and like you said, Mississippi State was just able to fall on it. And they turned that into points as well. So like kudos to them. But I want to say one thing before we even get forward. It's like listening to you just talk about football and breaking it down. It's like watching Picasso paint. I mean, gosh, it's just like, I'm not even kidding. I was just like, this guy's cooking. This guy is just absolutely cooking. Watching Keon Coleman as well throughout all of this, kind of back to him. Or
Kevin Coleman. Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah. You're thinking of the Bills wide receiver.
I was at the beginning of talking about all this. I was going to ask you if he was related.
I have no idea. Coleman's a pretty common last name.
Yeah, and they don't play alike. But Kevin Coleman is a speed demon. Mm-hmm. And in the same way that they use Melquan at ASU, he's also their punt returner as well. And their kick returner, and
he's quick, he's shifty, man.
He had some pretty big chunk plays. So I like special teams as well on top of all of this. Like, listen, you were able to suffocate Wyoming in so many different ways. And if you're able to stop Mississippi State from, starting in good, field position, their offense isn't perfect. Their line's big. It's not perfect. Eastern Kentucky was able to put pressure. Eastern Kentucky sacked Shapen. They made him run and make plays as well. So it's not like they played this flawless game against a team that talent level, especially on defense, is much lower than Arizona State's. So if you cannot allow them to have these big plays, not allow Coleman to be shifty, I mean, you're never going to be able to completely take them out of the game, but Mosley's your long threat. He's your guy that you're going to kind of go downfield to, do the more medium to long passes, and then in the short term, it's going to be Kevin Coleman. Yeah. But again, there's only, 2 big guys you got to focus on as far as offensive involvement goes, and then shape and moving. And I think one of the big things as well is just that offensive line for Mississippi State. Big, not impenetrable.
No, not impressive really at all. And again, that's something that I noticed, that it was interesting to see Eastern Kentucky when it was just a 4-man rush. They were able to get pressure, and right, part of that goes back to Shapen's ability to run the football and be athletic and kind of do whatever he wants. But he will do that. But part of the reason why he was doing that as often as he was because Eastern Kentucky didn't allow that offensive line to create a safe pocket for him, a comfortable pocket for Shapen to work in. So that's why he was moving as much as he did. And for me, Arizona State's defensive line is miles better than that Mississippi State offensive line. So I think it's going to be a big opportunity for CJ Fight up front, right? All offseason, he was talking about trying to develop a pass rush as an interior defensive lineman. Well, this is your opportunity to go do it on a national stage against an SEC team. And then Clayton Smith on the edge. One thing you notice about Eastern Kentucky and really some of these other defenses that go up against athletic quarterbacks, it's one thing to get him moving. It's another thing to take him to the ground. Clayton Smith has the speed off the edge to be able to do that. I think whether that be an Elijah O'Neal opposite him, a Roman Petrie, like those guys are going to have to get involved as well. But I think Arizona State's defensive line, and this is just an absolute, perfect situation based off of the defense that Brian Ward runs.
I already like what you're about to say.
Right, is because of the pressure, the simulated pressure, the different looks that Brian Ward likes to scheme up week in and week out. This is a Mississippi State offensive line that struggled at times against Eastern Kentucky with a 4-man front. You go up there and you're showing them different looks every single play. It's so damn tough for this offensive line to figure out their assignments. I think early on, and I mean this, first quarter, first couple drives defensively, you're going to see some different looks from this Arizona State defense in an effort to try and get Shapen uncomfortable, right? You get him uncomfy early, you hit him early. That's in the back of his mind this entire game. And then that's when he starts trying to do too much with the football. That's where Arizona State forces the takeaways. Defense creates opportunities for the offense, and we'll get into that Arizona State offense in a little bit. But overall, I think the defense is set up for another big game against Mississippi State.
And I think something that's going to play to their advantage, especially at the beginning of the season, is with a lot of new players, a lot of moving pieces, and only one game on tape where your starters didn't even play in the fourth quarter, really, offenses are not going to really know what you're doing. Like, what your identity is. What your goal is. All these different looks that you've practiced and that you've worked on, but only you do. And until you get later in the season where teams can actually look at multiple games worth of tape and film and saying, hey, what do they do against this type of quarterback? What do they do against this type of offense? Like, this is, I wouldn't call it an air raid offense for Mississippi State, but certainly one that was taking some pretty big shots downfield. To be fair, I would also be taking shots downfield if I told my receivers to just run a go straight down the field, a 4-vert, and they were all wide open.
Yeah,
I would be taking shots downfield for sure. But they showed they weren't afraid to do it, And even Mississippi State fans are like, I'm liking what I see out of this offense. It feels more spread out. It feels more open.
And that's the look they like to give you, right? And it sets up. That's the entire idea of really offensive master classes and really good offensive coordinators, is they are setting up something bigger down the stretch, right? RPOs, whatever, 3 yards, 4 yards, 7 yards. It's setting up a chunk play. And you saw it, right? How many different times in this game you see those defensive backs after 3, 4, 5 plays in a row where it is dink and dunk to the flat, or it's a run up the gut, to where all it's got to do is freeze those guys on the perimeter for a second. And that's enough to go out there and give Jordan Mosley a step, enough to give Kevin Coleman a step.
They
as
have
well.
speed.
They do.
I mean,
Kevin Coleman on third down is going to be an issue. I already know it's going to be an issue, but Cyrus Fiaseu, he's fast enough. We saw it all camp. Sure. He's fast enough to run with him. But you've got to set yourself up in the right position. Interested to see Shamari as well, just where they kind of line up in respect to a guy with Kevin Coleman's speed.
Yeah, you don't need to be perfect, but you're going to have to contain this guy.
Yeah.
He's going to be the most dangerous person on the offensive side of the ball. He's the most versatile.
Easily.
He can do the most from, you could hand him the ball as a running back. You could put him in the slot. You could have him run downfield, and he scored in the long game. He returned kicks. He is fast. He's speedy. He has good hands. He's hard to tackle, but it's not the type of player that you're like, oh, well, there's no chance, right? If anything, for me, it gets me more excited because, sure, ASU is a 6.5-point favorite. And, I think there are a lot of people who maybe are a little hesitant to fully jump into that because of the expectations that it brings and how fast that shift kind of was. I think if I asked you before the season started if ASU would be favored against Mississippi State, I don't believe you would think they would be.
I think I had been asked, and I said that at the start of the season, before anyone played
Before
a game,
anybody played.
I said I would be 51% ASU, 49% Mississippi State. I'm honestly, after watching it, I'm higher Arizona State.
Sure,
than Mississippi State.
I don't feel differently. I do think that it's going to be fun to have some legitimate threats that are going to test you, because even Wyoming was out some of their biggest threats as well. I think that's something that's getting a little bit lost in all of this, that it wouldn't change the outcome of the game, but I'm sure they would have scored.
It would have looked different.
I think they would have at least passed the 50-yard line more than they actually did. I'm pumped again. The same way I think Wyoming was a perfect week 1 opponent, I kind of feel like this is the perfect week 2 opponent, a pretty significant step up, a true test of yourself. You can't rest on your laurels. And if you're sleeping and you don't play well, it will be a wake-up call, because Mississippi State will win this game. If Arizona State does not show up as locked in as they were week 1 against Wyoming, Mississippi State will win this game.
You're going to need to be locked in for this game. Again, I know Mississippi State, we already talked offensively what they do. Defensively, overall, it didn't really impress me as well. The defensive line, again, sending 4 defensive linemen, weren't able to get too crazy pressure. The times that they did get sacks and pressure, a lot of it was simply the Eastern Kentucky quarterback hanging onto the football for a tad too long, took too long going through his reads. Mm-hmm. There's definitely an opportunity for these Arizona State running backs to make some serious noise. I don't think, and I know you tweeted it, I believe following the game, that Arizona State has 5-6 running backs. I would be absolutely shocked and floored if Arizona State played all of those running backs. I don't think you're going to see all of those running backs all season long.
I think they might redshirt.
Exactly. I think you're going to get into a situation where you're going to want to keep some of these guys' eligibility long term. Now, injuries happen, whatever. But at the end of the day, in this game specifically, I think what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to run the football and be able to, at least similar to the way that Mississippi State, with their RPO actions, try and get those perimeter corners to hesitate a little bit. I think if you're Arizona State and you're running the football, I think obviously, when you talk about the SEC, you're talking about the defensive line, right? You're talking about the edge. You're talking about the size, the speed, the strength, whatever. Being able to disrupt your offensive line, get Sam Leavitt moving. I think if you're Arizona State, I think running the football early, keeping those guys honest when it comes to eventually allowing Sam Leavitt to throw the football. And I could be totally wrong in my estimation of this, but I think running the football early and often, allowing the offensive line to really get comfortable with what they're seeing up front defensively, I think that's going to open things up really throughout the game. If ASU has success offensively running the football, it's going to open things up for Sam Leavitt.
I think usually the running game is going to be what gets ASU into its offense, but against Wyoming, they were letting Sam rip right off the bat. Now, how much of that was that it was Wyoming and they knew that he was going to be able to get comfortable, and how much on the other end against Mississippi State are you going to be a little bit more cautious?
Yeah, that's fair.
And I think that doesn't mean that they don't trust him or anything, but I think as great as Sam played, the running back room is still clearly your best weapon on offense. Yeah, clearly. And I think that if you're going to see Jason Brown in a game for the rest of the season, it'll probably be this one. If it's even if it's close, but especially if ASU actually does lead by 2 scores late or something like that, I think they're going to give him some looks, because listen, he could definitely contribute to this team right now.
He could,
but
think it just
you want to
depends.
keep his eligibility, and you have so much talent. And like, if eligibility wasn't a thing and all 6 guys were in there, I think all 6 would see the field at some point. Not all 6 every single game, but I do think they would all get playing time throughout the season.
Yeah,
so
no, absolutely.
I know it's going to be Cam. I know it's going to be DeCarlos, and I feel like Kyson Brown has pretty safely secured that 3rd spot. Raleek should
we'll
be
see
back.
If he gets in.
We'll see
this
if he's
week.
going to be more wide receiver, more running back. That's going to be really interesting to see how he works into the fold, and that's going to set the table for guys like Alton McCaskill and say, how much are you really going to be able to play, and then Jason Brown Jr., are we going to actually keep you non-redshirted on this roster right now? I think that's interesting, and One last thing before we move on. Not only is Kevin Coleman fast, not only is he shifty, does he have good hands, he also can jump high and make one-handed grabs, which he also did
was kind of crazy
against Eastern Kentucky. So
he's a weapon.
He's definitely a weapon, and we'll get maybe some perspective from the Mississippi State side. And we're gonna do that right after this break. But first, I'm excited.
We got something new,
about this new partner. Because let me tell you, we're keeping it tasty in Tempe. Woo! And we're doing that with our good friends at Neutral. This is a public service announcement for hard seltzer lovers. Neutral Vodka Seltzer has arrived. Made with simple ingredients, vodka, seltzer, and real juice. It tastes good, like really good. So good you'll never want to drink another artificial tasting seltzer again. That is something I'm huge on. Getting away from the artificial drinks.
They're tasty, bro.
And
they're
that's
tasty.
the thing. You don't need to be artificial to have a good feeling from getting a little vodka, a little juice in there, but also a good taste as well. They've got pineapple, watermelon, black cherry, orange, and more. And
they got orange flavored?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Well, we're going to get some. And nothing goes better with a little college football than a little Neutral Vodka Seltzer. I can guarantee it. Stamp it. I'll be drinking it on the show at some point this season. Neutral, keep it tasty. Enjoy responsibly. 2024 Anheuser-Busch Neutral flavored vodka and carbonation from St. Louis, Missouri.
I love it. I also love our friends over at Circle K. Obviously, we're chilling in Studio K, where PHNX Sun Devils usually resides. And honestly, this is my favorite studio.
Yeah, it's really good
there. But we've got a ton of snacks in the office. Shout out Circle K. I was eating some during the show yesterday. They've got everything you can ask for when it comes to snacks, when it comes to drinks, and when it comes to saving money. Guys, join the Inner Circle. It's Circle K's free membership program. It's going to help you save 25 cents per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups. And then every single day after that, you are going to save 3 cents per gallon as well. Plus, there is plenty of other member exclusive deals and discounts that you guys can take advantage of. Stopped on my way home, picked up a nice little sports drink after work. Circle K, they have it all, guys. Join Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details.
Woo!
I love it. The Adventures of Fluffy in the chat. Y'all gonna get smashed, but if you win as an Arizona fan, I know we will never hear the end of it. For losing to them last year, they're not going to get smashed.
Book that.
Yeah, that's not happening again. Based off of what I've seen, this is a team in Mississippi State that, yes, they've got some talent. Yes, they've got a little bit of an SEC pedigree to them. I do like their coaching staff, but this is not a matchup where Arizona State gets smashed unless there are some serious injury issues, which, knock on wood, you obviously never want to see that. Sharon in the chat, love the hat, Totri. Well, I'll tell you what, Brandon Bills, it's just going to
leave it at that.
Put that out there.
Promo
code PHNX. Short bus in the chat. We win by 17. Book it. We will we'll get into our score predictions on Thursday's show. Obviously, make sure you guys are always tapped in here on the PHNX Sports YouTube channel. Got a lot of stuff going on ahead of game day. Make sure you hit the like button on this video, hit the subscribe button, and yes, long leg Larry.
These nicknames. We also did our Big 12 football power rankings.
We did.
That is up on PHNX Sports right now. We differed a little bit.
We did.
Especially when it came to TCU. ASU jumped up pretty high in that one. If you want just a really quick recap of everything going on in the Big 12,
about
the
5
risers,
minutes.
the fallers, everything in between, go check out that on our channel right now. And, of course, keep on the lookout for you. We'll be simulating, of course, in College Football 25.
Yep.
Arizona State, Mississippi State. They predicted a loss against Wyoming the first time.
They did, and it was pathetic.
So let's see if they get their stuff together the second time.
They'll get it together.
Yeah. Let's keep going on Mississippi State.
Short bus. You don't need to do predictions. I just told you, but if you must.
Short bus, I love it, man.
It's things we have to do. Short bus, okay? I appreciate you. Also appreciate all of our PHNX diehards in the chat. Short bus, Sharon. They are talking ASU 24/7 in that diehard Discord. All you got to do to become a PHNX diehard, head over to gophnx.com today. Click the little diehard tab. It's going to tell you everything that you unlock, including access to that diehard Discord, discounts on events, on merch. You're going to get strictly diehard only content. The list goes on and on. You're going to get a diehard membership card. The list really does go on and on for one affordable price all year long. It is a lot of fun. Will in the chat, Totri disrespecting TCU, heavy LMAO, as well as Oak State.
I don't disagree.
TCU did not play well. I don't care that they played a Power 4 team in Stanford. I watched that game. It was bad. TCU did not look good by any means. Oklahoma State, they're a good team, but there's a lot of teams that had really good performances in week 1. So, yeah, I had them at 6, but I can definitely see that changing. But
6 is kind of nuts.
Definitely. I know I dropped the whole thing in like a Big 12 Facebook group with like 23K people.
You get roasted?
There were just a lot of people not happy with where I put Oklahoma State.
I can imagine.
Go watch the video. You can listen to the explanation. It's all there. It is what it is. But enough of my explanation.
Sure.
Let's go ahead. Let's hear from Mississippi State coach Jeff Lebby, just initially on what he saw from Arizona State.
What I see is a group at Arizona State that played with a ton of confidence, a ton of energy. There was great excitement inside their stadium, and we got a great challenge on our hands. Being able to go out there, play on the West Coast, 9:30 kickoff to us. Our guys got to do an incredible job preparing. We as coaches got to put them in positions of success, but we do. We've got a great challenge on our hands, and our guys are looking forward to it.
He has no idea what to do. He has no clue what's coming. And he knows that because he asked, what do you see on tape? Oh, they played with a lot of energy and the crowd was really great and we have a big test ahead of us. That's not an answer. That's not an answer.
Speak. It's just coach speak.
But even like you hear Kenny talk, right? And he's like, oh, they do this. It's not like you're telling them something new. It's to the point that I said in the last segment where this defense especially does not have a lot of usable tape right now, especially because like Wyoming was banged up and they didn't even play the whole game. And they're so deep and there's so many people rotating in and out that in week 2, you can't just sit back and say, I know they're going to do that. I know they're going to do that, whatever, right? So I'm not saying it as like an insult to him, but more of when you ask, what do you see about this team on tape? And all you can comment on is like the general vibe. I think that plays into ASU's advantage as long as the season is pretty early on.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And again, to your point, right? Jeff Lebby is a first-time head football coach. Last week's win against Eastern Kentucky was his first win as a head coach. Now he's been the OC with Oklahoma. He's obviously had a experience in the SEC and the Big 12 before. So they kind of understand that. And Kenny talked about it at his press conference on Monday, just about the staff as a whole and what Lebby brings in terms of his football pedigree. But overall, again, that's something that you have to remember, right? This is this guy's first road game as a head football coach, right? With a new program, an SEC program. One thing that he brought up that I don't think a lot of people talk enough about, right, is when you have some of these non-con games against teams you've never played. Arizona State has never played Mississippi State in football before. Mississippi State, for them, it's a 7:30 kickoff here, but it would be a 9:30 kickoff there, right? So we're talking a 4-hour game, usually, right? So by the time Arizona State is done, it would be about, let's say, 11:30. For Mississippi State, we're talking about 1:30 in the morning.
Yep.
Okay, you've got the flight, you've got all of that stuff, and I don't think it's going to play a massive role, but it's just something to keep in mind as you kind of try and figure out how this matchup is going to go. Maybe some things that play into Arizona State's favor, and I think that is something that you're going to absolutely see at least early on in the game, right? Just a little bit, and then again, right to Lebby's point, Arizona State's team overall played with a lot of energy, a lot of effort, and you have to amp that up going into this week. And I don't think Arizona State as a whole is going to have any issues with that. And again, talking about this ASU offense, this is a team that with Sam Leavitt, Cam Scattaboo, Jordan Tyson, there are a lot of personalities on this offense. They all play with high energy, high effort, high passion. They all want to win each and every down, not just the football game as a whole. So Jeff Lebby was asked at his Monday presser just about this Arizona State offense. This is what he had to say.
I watch them on offense. Again, the QB makes a ton of plays off rhythm, and this is a really athletic guy that's played a bunch of ball. The big back has got a chance to be a really good player and a guy that we got to do a great job of getting on the ground. And then they've got some dynamic skill players that can do some things with it when they get the ball in space. So it'll be about open field tackling. It'll be about creating turnovers and then going and playing, assignment sound football.
Creating turnovers. That's where this game is going to be won or lost, and that's cliche. We talked earlier in the show just about Mississippi State's, lack of ability to really hang on to the football. Mind you, they didn't really turn the ball over because they recovered all those fumbles, but the ball on the ground is something you never want to see as a coach. And Kenny Dillingham's been harping on that for a while now, specifically with the quarterbacks, but obviously translates to the running backs as well, right? Like, you need to ensure 2 hands on the ball. If the play's not there, don't try and be Superman if your team doesn't need you to be Superman. Live to fight another down. And if I'm Sam Leavitt, you cannot turn the football over and give an SEC opponent, I don't care who it is, extra opportunities on offense, especially not with weapons like Kevin Coleman on the other side of the field. Arizona State has to take care of the football. I think whoever wins the turnover battle is the team that's going to come out on top.
So what you're saying is Sam Leavitt needs to slide.
This guy, I mean, Blake Shapen, he doesn't slide either. So
sure, but I'm not exactly trying to make Sam Leavitt
to slide.
Blake
Yes,
Shapen.
I want Sam Leavitt to slide. I will take 2 less yards so that you can protect
safe.
yourself. And when you're sliding and you're giving yourself up, we see how fast these DBs and linebackers move downhill, right? Sometimes it's tough to stop. Obviously, you don't want a late hit. But when you're sliding, you're now creating an extra opportunity to get penalty yards based off of a guy coming in for targeting versus if you just dive.
I want Sam to slide so much that he pulls off the fake slide at some point this season. Listen, in the press room, that's the only thing that would make me go nuts. I'm usually very contained into myself. If Leavitt pulls out a fake slide in a game, I'm going to start howling.
In the press box. Just get on the chairs. That would be crazy.
People are going to be looking at me. Chris Cartman's going to be like, what the hell are you doing?
Who is this guy? Doug Tamaro would throw you out.
Yeah, no, Doug would put me in a full
Pick
Nelson.
you up by your collar and your belt loop and just throw you out.
Full Nelson dragging me out.
Be here for it.
That's quite the visual.
But you agree, right? Arizona State and Sam Leavitt, I think, again, a lot of this, we talked early on just about the Mississippi State offense, right? I think this is an opportunity where it's going to be up to the ASU offense to win this game. We know what this defense is. Now it's time for this offense to go take care of business.
Yeah, the turnover battle is a massive part of it. I think at the same time, it's about just not making mistakes, period. Not necessarily just about the turnovers, but this is the type of game and the type of team where, again, you don't have to play perfect to win, but there are some of those missed plays and missed opportunities that Leavitt did make in game number 1 against Wyoming, and the overthrow, or even if you're looking at Jordan Tyson where you're in the end zone and the ball touches your fingertips. Those are the plays that you need to come down with. Mm-hmm. You need to be able to secure those, and you can't play around because as high as we are on Arizona State right now, and after week 1, we're flying high, and I'm not trying to undermine that at all. This is still a team that a lot of people picked to be last in the Big 12. This is still a team that has a ton of moving pieces, and sure, they beat up on Wyoming, and it was as good as you could ask for, and you could take that for what it is, which was freaking awesome, but playing a bad SEC team, playing a Texas State team, right? Playing a Texas Tech team. These are all teams that are better than Wyoming. These are all teams where the mistakes that you
raining
made.
Shots again. Poor Wyoming.
Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong.
I'm not raining shots. I'm spitting facts. There's a difference.
I don't think, and this is going to rub people the wrong way. Mississippi State, I don't think is miles better than Wyoming. Like a healthy Wyoming team. Wyoming won 9 wow, words were difficult there. Wyoming won 9 games last year, right? And I get it's a new team. They had a lot of returning guys still at key positions. We talked about the offensive line last week. We talked about the running back position. This guy Svoboda was on the team last year, right?
He didn't play though.
No, but you're on the team. You're still in that system. You still understand kind of the vibe, what this program is. Like, again, Wyoming won 9 games last year. They were picked in the preseason to be, I believe, 6th in the Mountain West. Out of all of those teams, that's not a bad place. A middle of the pack Mountain West team.
Yeah, it's pretty, like you said, middle of the pack.
Is fine. Like, they're not world beaters.
ASU, if both teams play to their best potential and don't make mistakes, should win this game.
If you're saying if both teams played perfect?
If both teams played perfect, ASU would win this game.
I think if ASU played a perfect game and Mississippi State played their best game, I think Arizona State wins this game by 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think it's hard because I don't know if I'm just like scarred. I mean,
that's fair. That's fair.
Like
I hear you,
but I don't. I'm going to be honest. Like I don't want to be. Right,
you like
I want to be going into this being 17 points like hurt. Short bus. I am, and it has nothing to do with them right now. It has absolutely nothing to do with any of the players on the team or any coaches on the coaching staff. It is a me problem.
Yeah.
Okay. but I've just seen some things in my life.
What have you seen?
I've seen a team that you talk yourself into absolute potential and it's all going to go right. And look at this one game, and then you got allegations, and
look, man,
you got a lot of stuff being handed down to you, and then your football coach leaves, and then everybody transfers, and then everybody's upset and mad. And it's not going to happen at all. But I will be so much more confident in predicting big wins, dominant wins, if they come out in this game and they control it. And I think they absolutely have the talent to do it. I think that they have the drive to do it. I think they have the coaching staff to do it. I think they have the game plan to do it. And when I say it out loud, to me, it becomes an obvious answer. But there's just that little thing in the back of my head that's like pulling back, like, Erik, come on, calm down. And I hate it. I hate it. And William says battered fan syndrome in full swing. Yeah. But it has nothing to do with this team. This team is better than Mississippi
Erik,
State. This team should win.
If you don't take the time to heal, man, you're going to bleed on someone that didn't cut you, man.
Me?
You're going to bleed on somebody that didn't cut you.
Do you want to know what's going to heal me?
What's going to heal you?
The lights out of Mississippi State. Going to Texas State and whooping them. And then going to Tech and beating up on our old friend Jalen Conyers.
Well, they're going to beat up on him specifically.
Well, no. I mean, they might.
I mean, he doesn't play defense, so they should be able to
but on
beat
offense.
up. Yeah. I mean,
you know what I mean.
Yeah, I hear you.
You know what I mean.
I hear you.
Going 4-0 would solve a lot of things for me. And I think
I'd get butterflies.
I think that there's a pretty good chance.
There's definitely a chance.
I think there's a pretty good chance of that. I'm not going to get ahead of myself. I'm not going to predict it, but I certainly think it is way more possible than people would have imagined.
Well, look, if this team has to go, if they're going to go 4-0, they got to go 3-0. If they're going to go 3-0, they got to go 2-0, right? I know it's easy math. It's easy numbers. A lot of it's going to fall on that ASU offense, which we talked about, but this ASU defense needs to play lights out the same way that they did in week one. Jeff Lebby was obviously asked about Arizona State's week one defensive performance, and he gave them their flowers.
Those guys played, again, it's one of the first things I said, but played with incredible energy and excitement. They ran to the football in a really, really good way, in an impressive way. So they do. They've got those guys playing with confidence, with energy, and it's all over the tape. And so we've got to do a great job matching that and surpassing it.
It's that energy, right?
Is that the word that you took out? Because there's one word that I took from it too.
What?
You go. You go first.
I think energy and the point of them all running to the ball.
Okay.
Right. Those are the two things that I really took away from, because they were ball hawks, right? Anytime they had the opportunity to really get one, they got one.
Yeah.
And so massive 180 from last season. And if I was an opposing coach, it would make me a little fearful, because I would also understand that, well, playing energized and playing fun and playing, as ball hawks is great. It's certainly a defense that could still get better.
Yeah.
And players that could have better chemistry in playing that way. I'd be terrified that this Arizona State defense is going to get better week after week after week.
Yeah, the Big 12 should be worried about that.
They should.
I would say the thing that stuck out to me, and that I think is a phenomenal point by Lebby, is the confidence, right?
Yeah.
Energy, effort, whatever, but it's another thing to play with confidence. And the big thing that you see when a team is confident and a team is flying all over the field the way that Arizona State was in that week one game, is when your defensive coordinator is calling something and you're not thinking, you're just reacting, right? To the point where it is such a second nature, to where when there's a call in place, you're reading the offense and you're just going because you know where you should be. It's instinctual at that point. And when you're playing with a level of instinctual tenacity that Arizona State was playing with in week one, it translates into that confidence, right? It translates into a second play of the season interception. It translates into a second drive defensively of the season into another interception. It translates into a defensive lineman understanding that a pass was thrown behind the line of scrimmage. That's a live football. You go get it and you go put it in the end zone. Like, that's the level of intensity and confidence that is going to make this Arizona State defense a problem. Not for Mississippi State, not for Texas State, but for those 15 teams in the conference. That's where it's going to be a problem, because you let them build off of what they did in week one. You let them get going early. I guarantee you, I guarantee you, if Arizona State wins the toss, they are deferring. Arizona State's defense will be out there on the field first. They are going to kick it to where Mississippi State's going to have their back to that student section. And Brian Ward, mark my words, is going to send the house. And you are going to see this defense flying all over the field.
You know, in a good movie where what?
Nothing.
What?
I'm interested to see where you take this.
You know, in a good movie where you don't realize it in the moment, but then later in like this key crucial part of the plot, there's like this callback to something somebody said or mentioned or saw, and you're like, whoa, that all makes sense now. That plays a massive part in this. What a great payoff.
Yeah.
That's how I feel right now after we talked to all these transfers and asked them why they came here to Arizona State on defense specifically. And they said Brian Ward's defensive system and how excited I would be to play in that, how much fun it is and how it would maximize myself. And at that point, a lot of it was theory with these guys, and theory is how they would fit in. And it's nice that they're excited. It's nice that we believe in B Ward D-Cord, but we got to see it. And then after week 1 and now going into week 2, you see how much it means for a player to truly believe in the system that they are playing within.
Yeah.
And how much that unlocks them to not only play freely, but fiercely, with confidence, and with the confidence of the person next to them to the left and to the right is doing the exact thing that they need to do.
Yeah.
And that is something that I don't think a lot of teams have, right? Because it feels like every single player on this defense is here because they legitimately want to be a part of how this defense plays.
Yeah, you would too. If you were a linebacker who sat on the bench at wherever you were, if you were an edge guy that the system wasn't built off of pressure and simulated pressure, and you just had to sit back, and then you see Brian Ward's defense, and you're like, dude, they're sending guys all the time. Kenny said it on Monday. They blitz more than green grass out there, right? That's like, it's a defense where it's, hey, your job, go make sure that quarterback, his butt is in the dirt, right?
Make them uncomfortable.
And that's exactly, who wouldn't want to play in that defense? Hey, Erik, if I said when you show up to work today, this is what you got one task. I don't care how you get it done. Go get it done. One task. You all day to do it.
I'd be begging for that, brother.
Right? That's the system, though.
Yeah.
That's the system that Arizona State's defense plays in, where it is free and these guys are flying around, and you will see it, not just in week 2, not just in week 3. You're going to see that for the entire 2024 college football season. And we got one more soundbite from Mississippi State coach Jeff Lebby that I think is an interesting point, not just for Mississippi State, but for Arizona State as well. We will get into that, but we're going to take a quick break to tell you a little bit about our friends over at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Obviously, we were there just a few days ago doing our live in-person fantasy football draft. It was an absolute blast. If you made it out there, you can attest to it. We were live on YouTube. It was so much fun. And the reason we were able to get that done is because of our friends over at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Nobody does it better. They have a ton of locations. Obviously, we're at Wild Horse Pass. It is so crazy to me going there. And it doesn't matter if you are there in the morning, which we've been. It doesn't matter if you're there at night. That place is absolutely packed. People smiling from, ear to ear, just because it's a vibe. They're having a blast out there. They're winning. They've got good food. They've got sports books. They have it all over at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Also, be on the lookout because we're going to be hosting some events there all year, including cards and Suns watch parties and more. So definitely stay tuned for info on how you guys can come hang out with us. You do you at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Visit playatgila.com for more details.
If I told you that you're a coach and you can see what it's like to put a player in for a play and what would happen beforehand, and you can decide whether or not to make that decision, would you like that?
I would like that.
Would that make your job easier?
I like it a lot.
Now, I can't guarantee you that for Coach Totri, but for Totri that's looking to put some new floors in his place,
I am moving.
Oh, well, I can make sure that you can visualize exactly what that looks like in the best way possible. And that's because of our friends at Empire today. They're back, baby, and they are here to bring you the best floors in the most easy, quick, and convenient way. Great speed, great service. Listen, the last thing you want to do is make a decision as big as what are you going to do with your floors and not have somebody that you trust.
Facts.
And not have somebody that's looking out for what's best for you. What type of floor? What color of floor? Does it match your home? Well, you can see with their virtual floor visualizer. It is absolutely fantastic. It's one of my favorite things. Plus, their customer service is awesome. They have a shop at home convenient service. They really can do everything over at Empire today. And you can schedule a free in-home estimate. All listeners receive $350 off when they use promo code PHNX. Some restrictions apply. See empiretoday.com/PHNX for details.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Look, I think when people have talked already about this Arizona State Week 2 matchup against an SEC opponent in Mississippi State. People discount what ASU did against Wyoming because, hey, it's Wyoming,
Right.
they look bad, they whatever. And then people do the same when it comes to Mississippi State, see that they played an Eastern Kentucky team whose mascot is the Colonels, and they just absolutely dog walk them as well, right? Which, again, it's just it's part of college football where usually some of these Power 4 teams now, they've got games against, teams that aren't really that good. Now, I think Wyoming is a better team than Eastern Kentucky. That is just my 2 cents. But I think for both of these teams, this is a quote unquote measuring stick. This is really going to tell you how good your team is. And Mississippi State coach Jeff Lebby, well, he said the exact same thing.
I think it's going to be a great measuring stick. Again, you look at Arizona State, the way they played in all 3 phases. Saturday night, really just an incredibly dominant performance over a very well-coached, tough Wyoming football team. And so you watch the tape and you see, man, these guys are a completely different football team than they were a year ago. And so for us, having the mentality and the mindset to be able to go in and play with great detail, and our effort and our physicality and our execution is what, at the end of the day, will give us the opportunity to go win. But I think there's, for us, it's a great measuring stick to see exactly where we're at.
I think it's a perfect point, right? Is now you've got 2 teams that nobody really in the grand scheme of their conferences think that Arizona State and Mississippi State are going to be players in that conference, right? At best, they're a middle of the pack team. At worst, they're at the bottom of their respective conference. But I think when you look at what these 2 teams did week 1, both of which scoring a ton of points offensively, both of which had suffocating defensive performances for young football coaches early on in their tenures at their respective schools, I think this can be a measuring stick of, hey, I'm an ASU fan. And to your point earlier, right, you've been scarred time and time again based off of a dominant week 1 win, or, hey, your team finally makes the AP top 25 only to fall off right after that, right? True. But in this moment,
watch yourself.
You can go prove that it's not a fluke. That week 1 game against Wyoming, it wasn't just because Wyoming was out 2 of their best players. It wasn't just because it's Wyoming, right? And the same goes for Mississippi State. They're looking to do that, except on the road. It's going to be a measuring stick. It's going to be a test for both these teams. And whoever comes out on top, I think the trajectory of their season is going to be wildly different than whoever loses.
Every game for ASU this season is a measuring stick, even if they're 4-0, if they're 5-0, 6-0, 7-0, 8-0, 9-0.
Okay.
Listen, every single game that this team plays this year is going to be a test for them. Now, there are some tests that are really hard and difficult and you fail, and there are other tests that are easy because you studied for it and you were prepared, right? And somebody like Jeff Lebby at Mississippi State can see just how quick of a turnaround Arizona State is. And I wouldn't be shocked if other young coaches and early young coaches are going to start looking at what's going on here and be like, how do I emulate that? Because look, 2 things can be true at the same time. Wyoming could not have been the greatest opponent and they could have been injured. And at the same time, Arizona State is a much better team for the fact that they ran roughshod over them.
Yeah.
Right? You did exactly what you had to do and then some. Right? What they had to do was win. And what they did was purely dominate. They could have been 62-0 in that game. Right? So this is a measuring stick, right? This is a completely different opponent. This is a better opponent, but this is still an opponent you're better than. I think it's the same way next week. It's an opponent you're better than, but still better than Wyoming. And then you get into Big 12 play. And that's when it's going to get real interesting. And that's, again, the true measuring stick. But every step along the way is important for this team.
No, all season is definitely going to be interesting. And stay locked in right here on the PHNX Sports YouTube show. Guys, make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, drop a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. Shout out to Clint, Will, BC, Sharon, Emily, everybody in the chat. We appreciate you guys taking time out of your day to watch live or listen on audio wherever you get your podcast. That is going to do it for today's episode of the PHNX Sun Devils show. Of course, we will be back with our predictions. We'll be back with Fact or Cap. We'll be back with Heat Index and so much more on tomorrow's show. That is Thursday, depending on when you are listening to this. So be there or be square. If you enjoyed the content, give the show a follow at PHNX_Sun Devils. You can follow me at Anthony_Totri. You can follow this guy right here. That is Erik Ruby with a K. You can follow DJ Coop at K Coop Sports. And guys, we will see you tomorrow. In the meantime, go Devils and peace.
We all silly like the mayor.